Hi everybody, it's Elisabeth from Fior della Spada again. Another beautiful day in Italy, so we took advantage to shoot another video about the Spadone. We've been doing a lot of Spadone recently because one of our trainer colleagues is currently putting a lot of effort and time into the Spadone. And he doesn't like to be in front of the camera usually, but he will go through the first part of the first Assalto by Marozzo for the Spada da due mani, or Spadone as we call it. So yeah, we will do that as a solo drill, and I also did some footage together with Simon where we tried to do it as a partner drill. Obviously, this is our interpretation of the first part of the first Assalto, so an interpretation is obviously an interpretation, no intention to say it's the only valid one, or even that we won't change our mind anymore, or that my colleagues won't change their mind anymore, but maybe we can bring some inputs to other guys who are working with it. Yeah, just enjoy. Here we are again, this is Alex. He'll help us out with the interpretation today. So let's just go through the text and discuss what it might mean and what happens. So he says in the first part of the first Assalto, essendo arrivato appresso del tuo nemico, tu ti metterai in guardia di testa. So that's pretty clear, so you just wait for him to approach in guardia di testa.
And this is my interpretation of the guardia di testa.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are different interpretations all over the internet and over the world of the guards, the blows. So, as I said, this is ours. No intention to say that this is the only valid one. So, this is our guardia di testa, and he says then, I think in the part before that, he talks about the fact that you're approaching. So, I forget to mention that it's he writes that it's an Assalto in gioco largo. So maybe you want to explain what gioco largo means?
Gioco largo means that you're not closing into your opponent. So you always have room to make full blows. In gioco largo, you can always do blows like this. While in gioco stretto you can only go halfway through with a mezza colpa.
So, but it's basically just about the distance. We're working from a far distance, so no cuddling, no proximity to your enemy.
No cuddling.
No cuddling, yeah. The two of us are approaching, and we wait for him in guardia di testa, and then he says, lui fosse in porta de ferro alta. So the enemy is approaching in porta de ferro alta.
Which would look like this.
Which would look like this, exactly. And then he says, tu fasacci di uno falso impuntato.
Falso in punto. Very important are the words, because there is also a punto in falso. So you have the falso in punto, which means a cut with the false edge.
Okay.
With the false edge towards his sword, followed by a punto, by a thrust to his face.
Okay, so basically I stop his forward motion by by stabbing him into the face.
You stop the forward motion of the opponent by setting aside his blade and doing the thrust to his face. Okay. So he either has to stop or he impales himself.
Sounds great. Then he says dita gamba innanzi, so you another step with the right foot, and you do uno mandritto per testa con uno tramazzone insieme.
So this is a mandritto to the head, together with the tramazzone. The tramazzone is just a turning motion of the sword. So this, in my interpretation, these are not two separate cuts, but one. And with the motion of the tramazzone, I set aside the opponent's sword even farther and downwards. So when I come up with the tramazzone and do the step forward, he has no defense.
So we end up in Porta di Ferro Larga, which would be this one. And then he says that il tuo inimico ti tirasse per testa, so he would basically come to your head from above. And he says then butterai la tua gamba dritta verso le sue parti dritti. So you would put your right foot towards his right side. And this is quite a long long part. El parato con el filo dentro, so you block his blow by doing a punta, another punta, so a thrust, which would be a guarda d'entrare.
Something like that.
Something like that, okay. So the other one comes, you parry with a guarda d'entrare, and then comes another blow, gamba manca inverso alle sue parti dritte, so again you step towards his right side with your left foot, and you do a roverso fendente towards his head and end up in coda longa e alta. Okay. And I think that's the first part, and the only thing left is the withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
And again he says te tirasse per testa, so he's going to your head again. Tu tirerai la gamba manca presso della dritta, so exactly, your left foot comes back to your right foot, and you cross your arms, so braccia inclinando fare la punta della spada in la faccia dell'inimico. So the point points towards his face again, and you parry with that would be a guarda di croce basically. And then comes another part that is a bit written in a bit stupid way, sorry Marozzo, because I've seen so many different interpretations again about this one. So you parry it in guarda di croce, and then he says you do another step backwards, and you do
due spanne.
Due spanne, yeah. Uno falso dritto de sotto in surso per le manche del nemico e in tal tirare la gamba manca nel forte di dietro alla dritta che tu sarai con la tua spada in porta di ferro alta. Okay, so we have to end up in porta di ferro alta, and we do a falso to move his sword aside.
Yeah. The problem is we have the falso, which we are supposed to do the cut with, pointing downwards.
Well, so we have to turn the sword.
Yep.
So we are in guarda di croce, and now he says we move his sword aside by doing a falso. Yeah,
turn the falso upwards for the cut, and then I just complete the turn to end up in Porta di Ferro Alta.
Porta di Ferro Alta, la gamba manca seguirà la dritta per de dietro, e lì voglio che tu aspetti il nemico. So you end up with your right foot forward again,
and the complete thing would be the due spanne.
Okay, yeah, and then you end up in Porta di Ferro Alta with your right foot forward again. Okay then, I'll try. Okay, so I start with my right foot forward.
Yeah.
In guarda di testa.
Yeah.
Then he approaches, I do the falso to his sword and I thrust, step. Then the tramazzone mandritto towards his head with another step.
Yeah.
Down into coda longa, porta di ferro e larga. Then he attacks my head. This foot goes there.
Cross step.
I parry. Then I do the roverso mandritto.
Roverso fendente.
A roverso fendente, and with the step
with
again.
the step of the left foot.
But this time I end up in coda longa e alta.
So this would be a mezzo roverso.
Mezzo roverso, so half of a blow. I don't know how you say that in English. Half a blow.
Half blow.
Half blow. Okay. And now the withdrawal. So I parry. He goes to my head again. I parry.
Yeah.
Move his sword to the side. Step back. And end up in Porta di Ferro Alta.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Yay! I'll do it once more. So, guarda di testa, falso il punto. That was the mandritto. Parry.
Yeah.
Reverso.
Yeah.
Half blow. Parry. Move sword aside. Step back. Porta di ferro alta.
Yeah.